In the big picture video, we provided a brief overview of how our culture, processes, and technology helps us implement the concept of deliberate discovery. In this video, we'll take a slightly closer look at the whole process. We of course start the whole process with your idea. At this stage, your idea may just be a single line idea, or you may have details to share if you had a chance to invest time into the idea. Whatever information you have available goes as input into the first phase called the exploratory phase. What follows the exploratory phase is the construction phase. Let's start with the exploratory phase. So what are the questions that we try to get answered during this phase? Here's a sample of the questions we ask during the exploratory phase. We start with questions that help us understand the product in much more detail, such as what problems it solves and who the target users are. Then we move on to more solution-related questions, such as what features make sense for the initial couple of releases, how long it will take to build them, and based on that additional estimate information, what their priorities are. Finally, we move on to project schedule and cost-related questions. In the process of answering all those questions, we create a bunch of deliverables. All of this is documentation that is created during the exploratory phase. The whole product idea is broken down into a list of high-level features and then further broken down into what are called stories. And it's the stories that eventually get converted into working software. Once all of the stories that form a feature are coded and shipped, we can call that feature complete. While the features in the stories are verbal descriptions of the idea, it is the wireframes that really help to visualize the product through the user's eyes. We say low fidelity because the stress at this stage of the project is to focus on the functional requirements and the interaction of the user with the product rather than aesthetic elements such as colors and fonts. While all of the above are being done, the architect starts getting involved in the project as well. This helps us to set an appropriate technological direction for the whole project and in turn ensures that we provide a more confident estimate for the project. At the point we share our estimates with you, we would normally start a dialogue in terms of what parts of the plan sound good and what needs to be changed. All of the above activities take about 2 weeks to complete. The construction phase begins as soon as you wave the green flag at the end of the exploratory phase. As the name implies, this is when we actually roll up our sleeves and start building the product. Let's look at the questions that are answered during the construction phase. Since we're building a software product, technology risks are best discovered, or rather deliberately discovered, as early on as possible. Like the Agile Manifesto says, working software is the primary measure of progress. Right from the word go, the team starts to hustle with the goal of rapidly releasing the first few stories. That satisfaction and exhilaration the team gets by demoing stories right in the first week is pretty fantastic. And you, as the customer, will start feeling a lot more comfortable with the way things are kicking off as well. To keep the momentum going, the team targets to keep releasing working software every 2 to 3 days after that, coupled with demos with you for each of these release stories. As the project progresses, we'll inevitably find that some of the earlier documented stories will need more details. What's more, we'll also discover that new stories may need to be added. This is normal in any software project. The way we react to these changes at Multunus is where the rubber hits the road. While the programmers continue to code on the stories which have enough clarity, the rest of the team works with you, the customer, to make any scope changes to the plan. We like to keep the date of the first release sacrosanct and keep everything else variable. This is the lean startup philosophy where the focus is always on releasing early and getting feedback from the market. The main deliverable from the construction phase is of course working software. But how do we get there? There's a bunch of things that come together to make the final product. Here's a sample of that list. To give you an example of a fine-grained business rule, think about a sign-up form that needs to be filled in by the user and submitted. Depending on the number of fields on the form, we may have to add a bunch of validations along with useful error messages for each of those fields. All of these tiny details are documented online and linked to the appropriate story. If you're wondering what low-fidelity visual designs mean, please make sure to watch the team video where we describe the role of the UX designer among other roles. The goal of the team is to have a reasonably complete first version of the product in about 6 weeks. At that stage, it is your prerogative as the owner of the product to decide whether to go live and open it up to real users, or wait to add more features before doing so. So what's the fine print? There isn't much really. But for the sake of transparency, here's what we think may not be very obvious. There's a lot of communication, both written and over calls, that happens during both phases. So the most important thing is your availability as a customer. Since you are the product owner, you're the only one who can tell us with complete clarity if we're moving in the right direction. As regards technology, we think we're pretty good at what we do. Of course, that doesn't mean we aren't open to new ideas, but in general, we like to make our own technology choices. Thanks for watching. In the next two videos, we do a deeper dive in terms of team composition and how the magic of collaboration works during the two phases.